Is it possible to find your perfect foundation? Yes, but it's going to take a little bit more effort than just copying and pasting what you saw someone else use because you guys look the same. In this video, I'm going to share with you 4 important things you need to know about your skin in order to find the perfect foundation for you. So if you're interested in that, just keep on watching. Hello, and welcome back to Beauty and the Basics. I am Marche, and today we're going to go over the 4 things you need to know to pick out your new foundation. These 4 categories are color, obviously, coverage, finish, and wearability. So let's start with the easy stuff, and then we'll work our way into the more complex categories. So first, wearability. Wearability is how long will the makeup last before it really starts to break down and break up on your face. For the most part, there are 3 main categories I would consider for wearability. There is the 2 to 4 hours category. If you're buying from a halfway decent brand, most foundations will last you 2 to 4 hours. I'm talking drugstore, even beauty supply store, and of course high-end products will last you 2 to 4 hours as long as you're applying it correctly. The next category is 6 to 8 hours. This is more of an everyday style foundation. There are a few drugstore foundations that are pretty good, and then you also can find these foundations in like Sephora or Ulta. And then you have your long wearing foundations. So these are the foundations that can last 10 to 12 hours. A lot of them will say longer, like 16 hour, 20 hour, 30 hour foundations, but they'll do pretty good between 10 and 12 hours. These foundations typically say something about long wearing on them, and again, they have those extended hours printed on the bottle. Obviously, all of these foundations, there are additional tips and tricks that you can use to make them last even longer. But just using a foundation, a standard application, these are kind of the 3 categories that you're looking at for wearability. You need to decide what are you using this foundation for. Is this something that you want to wear when you go to work every day? Then you probably want to opt for a 6 to 8 hour foundation. Is this something for a special event, a wedding, or a special occasion? You probably want to opt for a 10 to 12 hour application. If it's something you're just using here and there sparingly when you go out, when you go to church, when you go to a birthday party, on the weekends when you go shopping, you probably can get away with a 2 to 4 hour foundation because you probably won't have it on that long. And if you put it on properly, it can last and look very nice for that entire time. The next category that you need to make a decision on is coverage. Coverage can vary, and there are some things you can do to build up or sheer out different coverages, but we're just talking about just the basics right now. Starting with light coverage, this is your skin tints, your skin serums, things of that nature. They're going to do a light coat for evening out your complexion, really. So if you don't have any discoloration, any dark circles, anything you're trying to hide, then light coverage or a skin tint type foundation might be perfect for you. Then you have medium coverage. Medium coverage is if you have some minor imperfections, that you want to cover up, or you have some noticeable unevenness in your skin tone that you want to, just make sure that it all looks cohesive, then you might want to go for a medium coverage foundation. Now, some medium coverage foundations can be layered on to be full coverage, but if we're just talking about one layer, medium foundation will do great for you if you have minimal imperfections or minimal things that you're trying to cover up. And then you have full coverage foundations. Now, full coverage is for you're trying to cover up imperfections. You have drastically different colors on your face. And your skin tone is very uneven. This is the easiest way to hide imperfections without having to use a lot of makeup. So with medium coverage, you have to build it up to cover imperfections. With full coverage, you probably can use one layer for evenness all around and then maybe spot treat just a little bit on certain areas that are more problematic for you. Now, bridging wearability with coverage. Typically, your light coverage and your skin tint type foundations relatively fall in your 2 to 4 hour category. Your medium foundations relatively fall into the 6 to 8 hours, sometimes can be pushed to 10 hours, but relatively they're going to be in that middle category. And then your full coverage foundations relatively are going to be your 10 to 12 hour foundations. And again, because it's full coverage does not mean that it will automatically look cakey or that you will automatically look like you have a mask on. It just depends on your application, but just bridging the two, light is 2 to 4 hours, medium is 6 to 8 hours, and full is 10 to 12 hours. For the third category, we have your finish. So that is what your foundation will look like when it's going on and when it dries down. You have 3 fairly typical finishes in foundation. First, you have dewy. Dewy is typically going to give you a glowy look. Normally, you would see people with dry skin wear dewy foundations because they don't want their skin to appear as dry as it is. And dewy foundation sometimes can have extra skincare products in it to help with that glow and to help moisturize the skin. Next, you have matte foundation, which is the opposite. This is going to be little to no glow. This is mostly for people with oily skin. These foundations usually have some kind of oil control system or technology in them to keep your oils at bay so that you don't overproduce, because the oil in your skin will break up your makeup if it produces too much. If you have oily skin, maybe look into getting a matte foundation. Now you can flip-flop these foundations if you want to. You just have to do a little bit extra work to make sure that, if you have dry skin and you want to wear a matte foundation, that you don't look dry. And if you have oily skin and you want to wear a dewy foundation, you're not looking like straight up greaseball. Even with powder and all that, it still can make you look very greasy if you don't do your application properly. And then the third category, which is my favorite, is the natural or satin category. So this is kind of a combination of the two. Usually it will have slightly matte finish with a little sheen to it. I personally like satin natural foundations, and sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes I will opt for a matte foundation, and I have oily skin. Satin natural foundations can be used for oily or dewy. It really just depends on the formula. So far, we covered the easiest categories: wearability, coverage, and finish. And then the last one, of course, is color. Now, color is the most tricky of the 4 categories, in my opinion. The other 3, you kind of just want to examine your lifestyle and determine what it is that you're looking for, right? And it can change depending on the weather or if your skin changes, but they are easy changes to find. You can find finishes on the front of a bottle. You can find coverage on the front of a bottle. You can find wearability on the front of a bottle, right? But color is the tricky one. So there are 2 subcategories for picking your color, right? First is your shade category. So if you go into any store that sells beauty products, you'll see them kind of lined out in a range of colors, right? And so typically you'll see a section of that line that is the light or fair. And then you'll see a section that's maybe like medium or tan. And then you'll see a section that says medium deep, deep dark. And that's usually the range that you'll see at any store that has multiple foundations available, right? So you have to determine what category you fall in. So for instance, I am considered medium. Usually in any range, there is some kind of medium or tan category, and I usually fall within that category. If you are lighter than me, you will probably fall into light or medium light. If you are just a little bit darker than me, you probably will fall into like medium deep. And if you are a few shades darker than me, you probably will fall into deep or deep dark one of those categories. Across the board, once you find your shade category, you'll always be in that shade category or with the equivalent. So some brands have, say, tan, some brands say medium. But if you see the full range, you'll be able to identify where you fall. Also, it's very helpful when you are looking online for foundations, because many times in the descriptions of the shades, it will say medium warm whatever or deep cool whatever. And that will give you a sense of which foundations you should pick. If you're going to pick like multiple foundations to try out, that will give you a sense of which foundations to pick if you're going to order them offline. And then the most difficult, but not that difficult, subcategory of color is your undertone. So undertone is probably the most significant thing that you have to match in order for your foundation to look its best. Now, is it possible to find a foundation that looks exactly like your skin tone? Probably not, because you have multiple shades on your face. Whether you notice it or not, your forehead and your cheeks usually are a different tone. Your eyes and your jaw usually are a different tone. However, there is a perfect foundation that you can get that will blend them all together. And once you add your highlight and your contour or bronzer, it will look like your skin. There are 4 categories of undertones, 3 major ones and 1 special one. Of course, that's the one that I fall under. But the major ones are warm. So that is for people that have more of a golden yellow color to their skin. The research says if you look better with gold jewelry than with silver jewelry, then you probably are a warm tone. Also, research says that warm tones, if you look at your veins, if you go out in natural light and you look at your veins, they will have a greenish color to them. Next is cool tones. Cool tones, if you look at your veins out in natural light, they will have more of a bluish tint to them. And people with cool tones typically prefer silver jewelry over gold jewelry. You also have neutral undertones. Neutral undertones are a balance of warm and cool. If you do the vein test, you may see both colors in your veins. And people with neutral skin typically can wear gold or silver jewelry, and they look good in both. And then the special category, of course, which is kind of new on the market. It's not a new undertone, obviously, but it is new as far as finding shades that really complement your skin. And that is olive undertones, which is the category that I actually fall under. So olive undertones typically are kind of on the yellow side, but with a little green. I know that sounds weird, but that's how they describe it. Similar to neutral, olive tones can sometimes wear silver or gold jewelry. And if you do the vein test, they will see blue and green veins. Olive tone is kind of a hard one to pin down. It was very hard for me to pin it down when I was trying to find my perfect foundation, because number one, most brands don't have an olive tone foundation. They just don't. So if you don't even know something exists, it's hard to understand that that's what you need. Number two is there's no sure fast way to determine if you are olive or not. It's kind of like process of elimination. If you tried cool, if you tried warm, and if you tried neutral, and none of them really are doing what you need them to do, or you're noticing a lot of discoloration between your foundation and your actual body, then olive tone is like what you do after those don't work out, which is what I had to do. So for me, for example, I am olive tone, but I lean warm, meaning that with warm foundations, when I would put them on, it would look orange on me. It would look orange. My face would look orange and my neck would look yellow. And I kept going. I knew I wasn't cool. I'm not a cool tone person. I know that. And I knew I wasn't neutral because typically with neutrals, in foundations and in products, they have more of a pinky undertone, and I knew I wasn't that. So I was like, okay, I know that I'm yellow. Obviously, I can see myself. I know what people have called me all these years. They call you yellow bone. I can see, my eyes work. But for whatever reason, warm was not working, and I tried many different foundation brands. I tried Fenty, I tried NARS, I tried Dior, I tried One Size, I tried them all. Some of them I could get away with, like Fenty I would use and I could get away with it, especially if it was a medium coverage foundation or a skin tint type foundation. There are shades, of course, that you can get away with. But as far as full coverage, I wanted a full coverage foundation. And I could not find a full coverage that actually matched my face and my neck. And so through trial and error, I just kept going back to Sephora. Thank God for Sephora, where you can get a sample, go home, put it on, look in the mirror, look in the light. And after multiple visits, I'm not going to say how many, but multiple visits, I finally found the right foundation for me. So because finding your color is the most difficult category, in my opinion, and it's the one thing that if you can get that right, if you can get the color right, everything else is easy. One, because once you get the color right, almost every brand has dewy foundations or matte foundations. Almost every brand has long wearing foundations and skin tint foundations. And then, of course, most brands have a full range of shade categories. But with color is, that's the one. Also with color, if you can find your perfect color in one foundation, the trick is go get other foundation and just compare it to that foundation. So for example, you can go to Sephora, get samples of foundations, and find your perfect foundation. Even if it is a high-end foundation, even if it is $50, $60, you at least know what the color is and have it in your hand that you can compare. All you need to do, if you don't want to spend the money for a full coverage foundation, which I would recommend always have a full and a non-full, whether that's medium or light, but it's your preference, it's your pockets, okay? So if you don't want to spend the money on a full coverage $50, $60 foundation, narrow down the color. Take that foundation, put it on your hand, swatch it on your hand, or just keep it at home. Go to an Ulta or Walmart, or even go to the Sephora collection. I think their foundations are like $20 or less. And just compare them. Use the swatch, use the sample that you have that you know is perfect because you've seen it in the light, you've seen it indoors, you've seen it outdoors, you blended it in, it matches, it looks good, and compare it to the less expensive foundation. The easiest way to get over the find your color hurdle is to go to a Sephora and let them color match you. Now, I will say, I don't know about other people's experiences, right? But as a olive person, it did not match me correctly, okay? Because I'm olive and nobody makes olive stuff. Even like if you do the color IQ, like if you ever been on Sephora website and you do the shade match and you say, oh, I found my perfect shade and it's an olive shade, and you try to match it to a different shade online, it'll just straight up say, we don't have a shade for you. Sorry. We don't carry that in this brand. Sorry. Olive, no. However, if you have warm, cool, neutral, you probably will have a much easier time finding your shade from going to Sephora. And it's so simple. You can go to Sephora and literally ask one of the people that work there, I want to get shade matched. And they will take this little device, like a little phone kind of device, and they will put it up to your face and they will take pictures of your skin. And then their technology will do its thing and it will tell you your color. Now, typically it tells you your shade range. So like when I went, it did tell me that my shade category was medium, which was correct. I don't remember what the undertone it said I was, but it was wrong because I was olive. And I don't think they have olive programmed into their system. But medium was correct. So that was half my battle. I at least knew, okay, let's go to the medium shade range whenever I do look at a foundation. And then after you do that, thank God for Sephora, you can be in the store. They have testers where you can take some, put it on the back of your hand and rub it, see if it matches, or put it on the side of your face, see if it matches. Or if you don't want to do that, you can get a sample. You can get multiple samples, and they come in these little bitty jars. And it's enough for, like, if you wanted to do your face with that sample, you probably could do your makeup once or twice with the sample. It's a good size sample. And you can take multiple samples. I went one time and I think I got like 3 samples at one time. You can take those samples back home, put them on your face. I recommend looking at yourself in natural light, so like outside or in a window, and indoors. Taking a picture helps to make sure that it's matching your skin tone. Or if you are buying online, again, if you know what your shade category is, and maybe you know what your undertone, like your obvious yellow or your obvious red, then you can just click on whatever brand, look for the finish that you want, look for the wearability that you want, look for the coverage that you want, and then go through, look at your shade category, and buy 3 different shades. You can. Now, is your credit card gonna look at you crazy? Maybe, possibly. You get them in the mail, you test them out. If they don't work, you take them back. You send them back. Easy, like it, and it's worth it. I know it sounds like a lot of effort, but if you're someone that likes makeup, or you want to do your own makeup, you want to learn how to do your own makeup, and you're not trying to do anything fancy, you're not trying to beat down for the goth, you're not trying to do all that. You just want to be able to have a nice makeup routine to go to work. Or if you have a birthday party, your own birthday, your best friend's birthday, you're going out of town, you want to look pretty, you're going to a wedding, you want to look pretty, and you want to be able to do your own foundation, it is 100% worth it. I swear to you, because once you get the foundation, everything else is based off the foundation. Your highlight concealer, it's a shade or 2 lighter than your foundation. Your contour and bronzer, a shade or 2 darker than your foundation. The best eyeshadow colors are based on your undertones. The best lip colors are based on your undertones. It sounds like a lot of work, but I promise you, it is 100% worth it if you do want to incorporate makeup into your routine. So I hope this video was helpful and you were able to get some tips and tricks on how to find the perfect foundation for you, level up your makeup, and perfect your beauty routine. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, I'll see you later. Bye.